The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. If you are a regular watching the show, then you might be saying to yourself, what's going on? They're an hour late. And if you're new, we just want to welcome you. But we are switching to a different format today. We're going to try, it's a trial, to see how a 2-hour format works for you. We've heard from so many of you that you're enjoying the show, and we want to make sure that it's available to more people. So we're going to take the same amount of content that we've been giving you, and we're just going to accordion in, trim out the fat, and try to get you the information that you need in a format that's really easy for you to watch and gets you back working with your child, because we know that that's something that's important. So we will be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about how to be more effective, more efficient working with a child on the autism spectrum. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, we know how important that is to you. I know how important that is to you. I want to remind you that we talk about a wide variety of things here on the show. One of the things that we do frequently visit is ABA therapy, applied behavior analysis. That is not because it's the only thing in the world. It's just that it's the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism, and it's proven to be effective for all of our kids. So it's a great thing to talk about. Whatever your child's age is, whatever their skill level is, however they're affected by this disorder, there is progress that is available to them. And we want to give you the tools so that you can apply those tools in a very creative way to your individual child. There is no such thing as a cookie cutter method for autism. And the good news about that, while that's frustrating, right? The good news about it is, though, if we apply these tools in a creative way, then we can get to that progress. So we will talk about that substantially. Always like to remind you that I am not an expert in ABA. I'm not a board-certified behavior analyst. I'm not a therapist. I'm a mom. And I'm a mom whose child was diagnosed at the age of 2.5. He is now 9. We went through 5 years of intensive ABA, and my son is doing spectacularly. He is included neurotypical 4th grade now and excelling at the top of his class, and I couldn't be more proud of him. And I will tell you that it was not an easy road, and it took a great deal of time, 5 years, and we're still continuing to work. We work with the skills program at home now. We don't have therapists visiting the house anymore, but we still continue to work because there's more progress to be had. But I can tell you, not an easy journey, but a worthwhile journey, an amazing journey, and I'm forever grateful because we got our child back. I have conversations with my child about things that I just didn't know if I was ever going to be able to do. So I am incredibly grateful for what we had the opportunity to have, and I know that all of you don't have the opportunity. We lived within a 30-mile radius of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and we lived in a state where we qualified for help to pay for that ABA therapy. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened for my son. And I can't even imagine, I can't even go there to think where we would be today. And it doesn't sit well with me that you don't have access to the things that I had access to just through luck. It wasn't that I knew somebody, and it wasn't that I had education or money. It was just geographically where I was. But I want to be part of a team here that helps you to get as much information and as much help and as much support as you can get. So that's what we do here. We answer your questions, we hook you up with experts, we point you in different directions. You can call us, write us, tell us where you're at, and we'll help you to be able to get access. We want to hook you up right? What show is that from? I don't even know. But that's what I'm about. And as a mom, gee whiz, I tell you, nothing is as important to me as giving our kids that opportunity to make the most amount of progress that they can, right? It was important to me as a mom. It's still important to me as a mom. And it's important that you have that opportunity and ability too. I couldn't feel more passionately about it, right? So we want to tell you all the different ways that you can participate, write in, use this program to get what you need. And a lot of you wrote in some questions over the weekend, and we're going to address those in just a few minutes. But I want to first tell you, if you're watching us on autism-live.com, then you will see there's a little note there that says Shannon is answering right now, and there's a box below it. Right now, because I activated it, that box is active. You can type in your questions, hit enter, and it shows up magically here. There's a queue. We're going to get to all of them, though, today, I promise. And you can ask for the support or the answers or give suggestions. Give us suggestions about things that are working for you or something you'd like to see covered on the show. You can do that on autism-live.com when we're live. If it says rebroadcast, don't feel like you're cut off, because we've got a lot of ways that you can participate. Or if you're watching us on any of the other ways to watch the show, which we'll talk about in a minute, you can use these as well. There's the email address. You can write to us anytime, day or night. We check our email as soon as we get in, and we're happy to cover whatever you asked on the next available live show. Sometimes we'll pull in an expert to answer your question, or if we've got an expert that's already scheduled to be in here, we'll ask them your questions, but we'll answer you in writing as well. So check out our email. You can also phone in. If you would like to be talking to me right now, you can call that number. We'll hook you up in the studio, and you and I can have a conversation right here, right now. And that's a wonderful thing to do. If you're calling us after hours, leave a message and we will get back to you. You can also Skype with us. If you've got camera capability on your computer and you want to be here on the show with us, we love to Skype with experts and parents and brothers and sisters and individuals. If you're a teenager or an adult who's on the spectrum and you want to be on the show, Skype on over. You could do it anywhere in the world. We really enjoy talking to you on Skype. You can also participate by talking to us on Facebook. We have our own Autism Live Facebook page now. You can answer the question of the day there, which we'll give you in just a minute. You can pose your questions there. You can, if you want it to be private, you can send us a message. A lot of you have been doing that on our Facebook page. We appreciate that as well. And you can also tweet with us. That's right. There we are on Twitter. You can have a conversation with us, and we appreciate any and all tweets that we get from you. Also mentioned that there are other ways in which you can watch the show. If you are wanting to watch older episodes to see what happened last Tuesday, well, you certainly can on blip.tv. It's like a personal DVR. You can pause, rewind, fast forward, search a topic, say, I want to watch everything that you have when you're talking about bedtime rituals. Type it in there, and all those interviews will pop up. You can also be watching us on YouTube. Same thing on YouTube. Search a topic on our own personal channel. You can search a person. If you want to watch the interview that we did with Holly Robinson Pete, you can find that there. If you only want to watch the Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, you can search all of those. We have our own little separate area for those. You can leave your questions, comments on YouTube, and you can share them. And we hope that you will share. We're on a 2-hour format, and so I'm so conscious of the time. I got to remember to breathe here. I'm so excited. But you can also download us for free on iTunes. So that's another way that you can. All of the different ways that we're available to you are for free. You gotta love that, right? And we're also available on Ustream. I don't want to forget that. All right, so those are the different ways that you can participate. We hope that you will. We like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the time of day when we make friends with the despicable jargon that fills our lives once autism comes to live in our homes, right? Oh man, this is like the stuff, the words that about sank my battleship, right? I would think I'm getting it all together. I'm filling out the paperwork. I'm showing up where I need to be. I'm asking the questions I need. why doesn't somebody speak a language that I understand? And I was like that for a couple of years, and then finally I said, you know what, I'm just going to have to make friends with the jargon. So that's what we do here. We do it just like we teach our kids, one little snippet at a time, and reward ourselves for it and move on to the next thing. Over time, we start to understand what these people are talking about. It's important because we need to know what's happening. All right, so our term today is mastery. Now, this is a term that you probably have heard throughout your life. You want to learn to do something, you've mastered the breaststroke, or you mastered a new stitch because you're a tailor, different things that you become really good at. So what does this mean in terms of autism? Well, to a certain extent, it means being really good at something as well, but we're going to have a little bit more specific. So let's definition for it. Let's look at the actual definition for mastery. The point at which the child is said to have successfully acquired the target behavior determined by a previously established criteria. There's the important part. So this is not a bad definition, but let's take a look at our working definition. When the child is independently demonstrating the desired skill at the desired level. So we're going to talk from time to time about how we set up a mastery criteria. But it's one of those things that we have to think about the dog. How they have that expression about the tail wagging the dog. We don't want for the tail to wag the dog for our kids. We don't want to set up a criteria and then decide, well, if they haven't met the criteria, then they don't have the skill, right? That would be foolish. So we're always going to check in and see whether or not the child actually has the skill. So that's what we want to do for mastery, and we'll talk more about that. But really, I think for a parent, it's that moment when you say, by George, I think they got it. And we'll talk more about the specifics for mastery as we go on. All right, we also always have a question of the day for you. The question of the day is, what is the most amazing skill or skills that your child has mastered? In your time since your child was diagnosed with autism, what's the most amazing thing that they have now been able to do that they couldn't do before? I have to say, the list is so endless with my child. I always like to answer our question of the day a little bit, but the list is so endless. But more than anything, I think it's and we're going to have a cognition tip later on today, but my child's ability to be able to think through things and now communicate it. Because I think he had the ability always, but he now has the skill level that he can think through things. Over the weekend, I used to love chess as a child. I don't play anymore. And I must say I'm not anywhere near as good as I think I was as a 10-year-old. But my dad was somebody who played chess and played with chess masters. And he taught me, and when I was 10 is when Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky, that's how old I am. Yes, it's true. But they were doing that tournament. And my dad actually was somebody, my father was a technical director for television, and he was covering the chess tournament for PBS as a technical director. And it was a great summer. It was the summer that I was 10 years old, as I said, and we would play chess every day. Really important part of my childhood, playing chess with my dad. And a couple of times, my son is now 9. He's not yet 10. And I think my dad taught me how to play chess when I was 9. I became convinced that I was going to teach Jem how to play chess when he was 5. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was thinking about the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer, which stars Joe Mantegna, who we have an interview with that we might show you later on. An awesome autism dad who raises a great deal of money for autism. But in any case, I digress, and we don't have time for that. A couple of times I've tried to teach my son chess, and he had just the glimmers of it, but it was a little frustrating for him, so we would leave it. And I once again revisited chess with him over the weekend. Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, he massively got it this time. It really is amazing how when it's the right time to teach a skill, it demonstrates itself to us. He so quickly got it, and he did not beat me, but we got to a draw last night. We played 2 different games over the weekend, and in the second game, he remembered things, and it was just amazing. I've said it before on the show, I love to watch people think. And to watch your child think and think through a problem and problem solve, and be able to communicate it. Oh, it's the most beautiful thing on the face of the earth. And I watched his brain look at the chessboard, and I watched him going through movements. And we'll see how good of a chess player he ends up being. But he got it. He totally got it, and already has started to understand some of the finer points. He's 9. I love it. I wish my dad were here to see it, because he would be so moved. So for this week, this is one of the big things for me. But it always cognition, what he's able to think through and see and problem solve. Whew, very exciting. But I'd love to hear from you. What's your answer to this question of the day? You can answer this on any of the ways we just talked about: Facebook, Twitter, email, phone, Skype. Tell us. And it's not just for you. I mean, it's an opportunity for you to brag, and I think you should take advantage of that, right? But it's not just for you. If you write in and say, here's what my child could do that they couldn't, that gives hope to somebody who is sitting there today. And we all remember this day, right? When we thought, I don't know. I don't know what's possible. I don't know what my child's capable of. I don't know what this autism thing is. What is this going to mean? And what could it mean? It's going to give somebody else hope. Oh, well, if their child learned that, it's possible that my child could too. It just might take some time and some effort. So don't be a shrinking violet. Share the good with everybody. Okay, that's the question of the day. We always have a topic of the day. Our topic of the day, which is really our topic of the week, and I promised we'd be talking more about mastery, is reaching mastery and then maintaining progress. We always want to create progress continually, right? But then when we have progress, we have to maintain it. So important that I think, this is a mistake that I certainly have made over and over and over again. I'll probably make it again this week, where you teach something, right? Like the chess that I was just talking about with my son. And then you go, oh, okay, they've got it. And so you go on to other things, but every once in a while, you got to come back. You got to come back and go over it again and make sure that it maintains. Like anything else, they say, oh, once you know how to ride a bike, you can always get on a bike. But the first time you get on a bike after 10 years, you got to take a minute, right, to re-get it. Well, we don't want that to happen for our kids. We had enough of backsliding, right? We want to get that progress and we want to maintain it on a regular basis. So there are things that we can do, and we'll talk about that throughout this week and with our experts about maintaining progress. But first and foremost, I want everybody out there watching to know that progress is possible. It's there for us. We just need to make room for it and work for it and keep doing enough of the right stuff, and progress will come for all of our kids. If you're sitting there and thinking, oh, she's talking about the kids who are high functioning. No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about all of our children. And if you're sitting and listening and you hear that and you go, oh no, she's talking about the kids who are 3 years old and just, no, I'm talking about all of our children. All of our children that are on the autism spectrum. And if your child on the autism spectrum is 45, I'm talking to you. When I say children, I mean our kids. They don't necessarily have to be younger than 18. There's progress available for all of them. So to that end, some of the different things that we're going to talk about this morning, we've got a motor tip for you that I think might be of interest. We have a healthy eating tip, and we've got a cognition tip. We've got a lot of other stuff to cover as well. We're going to come back after a break with a news story that just broke yesterday that I think will be of interest to all of you who have teenagers or children who are going to be a teenager sometime soon. So stick with us. We'll be back after these messages. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Grandpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some guesses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live. You know, whenever there is a news story that we feel is important to share with you about things having to do on the autism spectrum, we do. We see these things now covered more and more in the traditional press, but there's always a bit of a spin to it, and we like to put our own fresh face on it from the perspective of having children on the autism spectrum. This story today is one in particular that you're going to be seeing a lot in the news in the next couple of days, because the publication, the Archives of Pediatrics and Adolescent Medicine, published a study this last week about teens on the autism spectrum and bullying. And what we're seeing is, and the headlines are all reading, that approximately 50% of all teenagers are bullied who go to school. And this is according to parents who were surveyed, that it was 46% that the parents reported were bullied at school. And as you look at the numbers, if you look in depth in the study, 46% reported that their children were bullied. 15% reported that their children were the bulliers, they were bullies themselves, and is bullier even a term? And 9% shared that they felt that their child fit both profiles, that they had bullied and they had been bullied. And what is interesting that is coming out in the study and that everybody's talking about is that the average rate of parents who don't have children on the autism spectrum comes out at about 11%. So the rate of people, of parents who have children on the spectrum is significantly higher, as if this is of particular news to anybody. I think that those of us who who have children on the autism spectrum are pretty aware of the fact that our kids are a bigger target and are more often bullied. What's interesting, and one of the things that you're not going to hear when you see this talked about on other shows, is that this comes from a survey that was taken in the year 2001. And 920 parents were polled and asked these questions, and that's where they took the data from. So this data is more than a decade old, which suggests to me that the number might be significantly different. The other thing that's of huge interest to me is that the researchers say that, in accordance with their findings, that schools should target their anti-bullying campaigns towards the more vulnerable populations, such as children on the autism spectrum who have ADD, ADHD, that kind of a diagnosis. And the quote from Paul R. Sturzing, who is the study's lead author from the University of California, Berkeley, says, "I would argue that the bullying interventions that we're using now, if not tailored, as in tailored to that specific population, are ineffective." I think that is what is of interest to me more than anything else, is that the Band-Aid that the schools are trying to put on it, if it isn't tailored specifically to those populations, then it runs the risk of being completely ineffective. And in this day and age where there's so little money for education to begin with, and when those of us who are going to IEP meetings are having to face, you know, we know that the government has a responsibility to offer us a free, appropriate public education, but if there's no funds, right, you know, where is it all coming from? And it becomes contentious. That if we're going to spend money, and we do need to spend money on anti-bullying campaigns, they need to be effective for the people who are most likely at risk. So we talk about this on this show a lot. How can we be more effective helping our children? This is just one of the ways now that studies are showing us. But again, I have to remind everybody that these numbers are coming from 2001. A little bit shocking, but research takes time. In any case, that's our In the News for today. We will hope for more effective strategies helping our children with bullying in schools. Stick with us. We're going to be back with we're going to answer some of the questions that you guys wrote in over the weekend after these messages.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And Wilson, I have to say, you know, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're taking a moment here to answer some of the questions that came in over the weekend that you guys wrote in. The first one is, what are different children lessons you can incorporate in an ABA program? This is a great question, by the way, and we're showing it right now on your screen. How much time do we have? This is one of the reasons why I use the skills program, because when you stop and consider how many things there are that a child learns from birth and begins to start to learn, because they don't master everything by their 9th birthday, but begins to learn from birth to age 9, it's well over 6,000 different individual skills that feed upon each other. And years ago, when they started at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and they were cataloging all of these different lessons, I'm told that there was a big sheet of yellow paper that they would write them on. And that over the years, this sheet of yellow paper grew to the point where when they were going to go in and do a presentation, they would put it on the wall and it would go around a lecture hall. That it was that big of a piece of paper with all of the different skills. And it was overwhelming to think that a parent was going to be able to figure out, well, which one do we start with? How on earth am I going to do this? It was hard enough for practitioners to figure that out, right? They had to go through lengthy assessments to be able to determine where exactly the child was. Do they need, because the thing with autism is that it doesn't follow the same path. You know, your child and my child might have been diagnosed on the same day, be the same age, born in the same hospital, but our children's skills ability are going to be different. So what one child needs, the other one doesn't need, and vice versa. So what I love is that the Center for Autism and Related Disorders took over a decade and put all of those lessons into a really user-friendly program called Skills. And you can check it out. There's a free trial that you can try. You can go to skillsglobal.com and try it. This is what we use at home, because what it does is it asks you questions, you answer them, and then it sorts out which lessons your child doesn't need and puts those away someplace so that you can look at them if you want to, but you don't need to. And then it gives you other lessons, and it has them numbered in such a way that you can pick and choose where you want to start. So you tailor it to your individual child, and it has all of the lessons that you would need in one concise place, including those lessons that we were talking about last week, the cognition and the executive functions, which you're not going to find anyplace else because they don't exist anyplace else. This cutting edge stuff that the Center for Autism and Related Disorders has been doing for 20 years with great success. And I know those are the lessons that my son had when he was going through ABA, and now I have the benefit at home of being able to, it's great because once you pick the lesson that it, you know, give you the pool of lessons and says, pick a lesson that you feel would be something that you want to work on. And then it gives you teaching points step by step. It gives you the way to chart it. It's amazing. It gives you a graph to show your child's progress. It's just beautiful. The first time I saw it, I shook for 2 hours because I was so excited. And for parents who don't have access to ABA, they have access to Skills. It's truly wonderful. And rather than having to guess, I hope that you guys take a look at Skills and see so that all those lessons are in one place. I remember right after my son was diagnosed thinking, I got to go to the library. And I went to the library and came home with all these books, and I was no closer to knowing what to teach him and how to teach him. So I personally recommend Skills. And I think whether you're doing ABA and you want to do some, you're a parent who wants to support what's happening with ABA, or you don't have access to ABA and you want to start, either way, I think it's great. So that's my answer to that. Or you can go to the library and spend the next 10 years researching what they did. But that's all you'll have time to do, and I don't recommend that at all. Okay, this question breaks my heart. The person wrote in and said, my 6-year-old, I'm showing it to you on the screen now, my 6-year-old was diagnosed with autism at school, but only PDD-NOS at the regional center, so they won't help. My California insurance is self-funded, so they won't pay for ABA. I wish I could get my son more help. Do you have any suggestions? I got a bunch of suggestions. It just depends on what's right for you and how much time you have and how stressed you are, right? I think the fact that you got a diagnosis of autism at school, you might want to start there and get as many services as you can from school. They're at least going to give you speech and OT in all likelihood. I can't assume that because different things for different children, but if you've gotten an autism diagnosis, in all likelihood you're eligible for those things at school. At least you'll be starting on something. I don't know what 6-year-old. I do know how old your child is. They may offer you a 1-on-1 aid or a 2-on-1 aid. I would push for the best that you can get. And of course, you're always going to be pushing for the least restrictive environment. That's what your child is promised. And that free, appropriate public education. If the school diagnosed with autism, they should be offering you a bunch of stuff and push to get as much as you can that's appropriate for your child. The regional center has diagnosed your child with PDD-NOS. For those of you who aren't in the state of California, the regional center is an amazing thing when it works well, where that's how we funded our ABA, quite honestly, was the regional center paid for it, and we were incredibly grateful. But there's so many hoops you have to jump through, and so many of you get stuck on the PDD-NOS hoop here in the state of California, where if your child just didn't meet the criteria, they get a PDD-NOS, and then the regional center says we're not funding the ABA. It is a steaming pile of poo, and it's so upsetting because your child needs help, and they're just saying, but they don't need it bad enough. Very, very frustrating. There is a process through which you can appeal with the regional center. I know people that have gone through that. It's singularly frustrating, and it doesn't mean that it will help you any, but you can. What you may want to consider is going and getting a private diagnosis, which will cost you a great deal of money, but it will be worth it, because if you have the school saying autism and you get a private diagnosis from somebody else saying that it's autism, not PDD-NOS, then your appeal with the regional center may carry more weight. And I say may. There are no guarantees, especially with everything changing with insurance. But it's something to consider. Now, a couple of other things to add here. Your California insurance is self-funded, so you're not eligible for ABA. I am told that there is a kind of insurance that's called gap insurance for people who are not covered by the new law because they're self-funded, because you know, we're at the end of 2012, and depending on what happens this year, if everything stays what it is right now, on January 1st of 2014, your insurance will have to cover ABA. Now, you don't want to wait for that, right? But I'm told that there is gap insurance that you can get that will cost you a pretty penny, but it will get you from here to January 1st of 2014. Some considerations: A, the money. And I'm told that if you go to get that gap insurance, that if you get it in the month of your child's birth, then legally they cannot charge you more than double what they would charge somebody else. I know, it takes your breath away, right? But if you go not in the month of your child's birth, there's no limit. They could charge you 6 times as much, 12 times as much for that insurance. So something to consider, depending on when your child's birthday is. You might want to consider getting and looking at, what would ABA cost me out of pocket? What would the legal battle cost me? What would getting the diagnosis, right? It's kind of nutty. But in any case, when you go to get the ABA through insurance, you're going to have someone, a doctor, write a note saying that it is medically necessary. It doesn't matter whether your child has PDD-NOS once that date comes, but you still have to get a doctor saying on a prescription pad, ABA is medically necessary. So you've got a lot of different options. They're all tough. The other thing that you can also consider is seeing how things go the next couple of months with things politically, to see if that 2014 thing is going to happen or not. And in the interim, get yourself CARD e-learning, get yourself skills, and start this at home. I would encourage you to apply for a grant from Autism Care and Treatment today for either CARD e-learning and skills, or help paying for an outside independent diagnosis. It's terrible because, you know, by the time if the health insurance kicks in 2014, if it does, your child is going to be another 1.5 years older. And I would encourage you, don't wait for that. Get something rolling. But that gap insurance, I'm told is available in the state of California for people who who have that self-funded. And we'll get, during the next break, I'll look up what the California insurance, because if you have questions, you're supposed to be able to write to them, and I'll get that for you. But lots of things to consider. I hope that you'll keep writing back to us, and that if nothing else, you'll start on CARDI Learning and Skills today, because you know how important it is. And also, since the school is already saying autism, get everything that you can from them. If they're saying autism, then they've got to provide some stuff. It adds up. It's not enough, but it adds up. All right, there's a bunch more questions. Let's take a quick break, and I'll try to find that insurance address for you, and we'll be back after these messages.
I'm Joe Montaigne. As a father of a daughter with autism, I know the challenges that brings. Military families impacted by autism wage a battle on two fronts. One for their country, and another for their children.
I know you God knows we're in a battle zone. Well, I'm fighting the war back here, and I'm fighting it all alone.
With 1 in 88 military children diagnosed with autism, the families face extraordinary challenges. But there is hope. With intensive treatment, the lives of children with autism and their families can be changed. You can make a difference.
Tomorrow's the day we've all been waiting for.
To learn how you can help a military child with autism, go to acttodayformilitaryfamilies.org. Thank you.
Maybe tomorrow.
Welcome back. I'm still searching for that address for the insurance in California, but I will get it for you. We have some other questions here. What are the options if a school still refuses a child's ASD diagnosis even after being forced to do an outside individual psychoeducational evaluation that diagnosed not only ASD, but also dyscalculia, dysgraphia, and processing disorder? You know, if you come to the school and you've already got an outside diagnosis, they have a responsibility to also do an assessment. And I don't remember how many days after you ask for it in writing that they have to do that, but we need to get one of our lawyers back on the show to talk about this kind of thing. They can't just ignore it. They are allowed to do their own assessment, and if they come up with a different answer, then you got a problem. But usually, if you've got a diagnosis and you ask them in writing for them to do an assessment, they've got a set amount of time in which they have to do it, or they are in violation of the law. And usually, if they know that you're already in possession of a independent evaluation, they know they better do it right. So I would ask for it in writing, that they assess your child, and that and put it in writing saying, you know, you have an obligation and we have not had an offer of FAPE from you. Let them know you mean business. Sometimes it's dicey, and sometimes you really have to push, but I say be a squeaky wheel, a polite but squeaky wheel. Put it in writing. You can do it in email, and make sure that you get an answer from them. If you don't get an answer from them and they're not planning on the assessment, it's time, unfortunately, to lawyer up. You can start with an advocate if you want to, and then go to a lawyer, but sometimes in this journey, it's one of the things that I find most disturbing, but it's the squeaky wheel sometimes, and that shouldn't be. It should be a level playing field for all of our kids. But my theory is advocate for your child first. Get what your child needs, and then you can go back and later on and help and support all the other people who don't know how to be the squeaky wheel. But for right now, you be the squeaky wheel. You know, and you took the time to get an independent evaluation, so you know what your child needs, and your child deserves help and support. And very nicely and politely let the school know that they're not going to roll over you. It's not happening. Not on your watch, right? do the little thing for them. Let them know. Be firm, be kind, always be kind. But when they see that your spine is, you know, straight and not bending, they should get in line, and if they don't, lawyer up. Let us know what happens. But unfortunately, that's what it comes to for a lot of people. Okay, we had several suggestions that came in over the weekend about Paul Corby, that we cover the story of Paul Corby, which we already did. But we are staying tuned with the Paul Corby story. He is the 23-year-old who has been refused a heart transplant based on, in part, the fact that he has an autism diagnosis. But we've been talking about Paul, and we talked about it on Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy 2 Wednesdays ago. I'll find out what the date on that is. But the person, I'm showing the question right now if you're watching us on autism-live.com, that there is a petition. I believe the petition link is also up on our Facebook page. I will double check to make sure that that is true, but I believe that it's already there. But you can go to www.change.org and you can put in Paul Corby and it will come up, or you can put in Help My Autistic Son Get a Life-Saving Heart Transplant. And please sign that petition, support that family, because this could be any of us. This could absolutely be any of us. And they also shared that you can tweet the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. To tweet them, you can tweet at PENN Medicine. Again, and I'm going to put that up on the screen, PENN Medicine, at PENN Medicine. So feel free to tweet them, but, in all cases, we want to be asking and polite and firm, but be kind. You don't want to make it more difficult for the hospital to be able to do life-saving procedures on Paul and other people. But we have covered this story, and we will continue to cover this story. Paul Corby, 23-year-old, who is being denied a heart transplant. But many of you wrote in and said that this is a story that you want us to cover. Okay, another person who says, how do you get your child's school to follow your potty plan? What a great question. If your child has an IEP, what you do is ask that that be included in his or her BIP, Behavior Intervention Plan. Once it goes into the Behavior Intervention Plan, what the procedure is for the potty plan, and everybody signs off on it, make sure that it's attached to the IEP, and now it's part of the legal document, and they have to follow it. Behavior Intervention Plan, the BIP as some of us call it, it gets attached to the IEP. If you look at the IEP, there's a box on the first page that says BIP attached. Everybody should check their IEP to make sure that there is a BIP. If your child is having difficulty with anything that you want them to follow a specific plan for challenging behavior, or to learn a specific skill, or for potty ritual, whatever it is, put it in the BIP, and then they have to follow it. Great question. Okay, and then this last question before we go to the A word, I'm going to put this up here. Hi, Shannon. Just wondering if your son attends any after-school programs like Boy Scouts, piano lessons, gymnastics, etc. My child is mainstream 3rd grade, and I don't want to push him, but I think he might be ready for more this year. I never know what to do. Thanks for all your advice always. We've done a lot of different things after school. We did Little League one year. We did Boy Scouts, and I keep saying I'm going to do the Boy Scouts again because I think it's a great social thing. We did piano lessons for a while, and I keep saying I'm going to get back to it. He has gone to gymnastics camp before. In the summer, we send him to different camps. He's done swimming lessons. We've done little bits and snippets and pieces along the way because especially when we were doing intensive ABA, there just wasn't as much time. I saw other kids Monday is soccer day and Tuesday is karate day, and and it was all great for them and it's all beneficial, but we don't want to get our kids to burn out. So you kind of got to gauge it about where their interests really are. And I'm a big fan of starting something and saying, what's your trial policy? So You know, a lot of places will have like a 2-week, your child can come for 2 weeks, and to see not whether your child takes to it, right? Because that's not a good litmus, but if your child finds it rewarding on any level. I know that for people who have kids who are neurotypical, they say, well, you just gotta push them through that. You gotta teach them discipline, and our kids get enough discipline. Having to work through communicating with other people and doing ABA, they get plenty of discipline. I think we need to stay in the neighborhood of what's really reinforcing for them, and when something is reinforcing, to take them back to that and really encourage them. But we can't burn ourselves out either. So right now, what my son does after school were the things that he requested. Every once in a while, our school does these different after-school camps where it's 1 day a week, and one of them is always Legos, building Legos. Like they do robotic Legos, and they do sumo wrestling robotic Legos, and you know, it's the 13 different topics around Legos. So he likes to do those, and when those come up, we'll do it, and it's like a 6-week period. But he also does chorus. This was the thing that he asked for. So that's 2 days a week after school. It's on Mondays and Wednesdays. He stays after school and does an hour and a half of chorus. It's social time, it's performance time. And every time I think, you know, I'll go to pick him up at the gate on those days, and he says, let's just go home. Let's just go home, Mom. And I say to him, well, you know what? Let's go and do it. And if you decide that you never want to go back to choir after we've done it, then we won't go back to choir. And he goes in. The minute he's in the door, he is the happiest of little campers. And when I've given him options to opt out of chorus or, you know, not be available, last year when chorus ended, it was all done, and I was so relieved to have Mondays and Wednesdays back, and they'd done all these performances all over the place. And then at the last minute, they announced that there was going to be one more performance, and it was a day when we were going to be out of town with family. And I said, well, you don't mind missing those performances? He goes, can't we come back, Mom? Can't we? I really want to perform. And so we changed our plans. We changed our plans because it was that reinforcing to him. So let that be your gauge, but be mindful. Man, if it's wearing you out and if it's wearing them out, not the right thing. But we know when they're happy. That's the one thing that I think we're all pretty, I can never tell if my child's sick or what's going on, but I know when he's happy. But yeah, being mindful not to push, because they have a full plate. They really do. I hope that helps. Okay, it is time for us to go to the A word. I just need to close out of that. Okay. The A Word is this amazing documentary being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following one little boy. At this point in the series, we've gone back to the beginning, and I think we're in the 4th episode now. And Jack Riley is 2 years old. He's been diagnosed very early, and he has started ABA therapy with the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We've gone through that difficult waiting period, and now he's started therapy. But it's not all hearts and flowers and roses, especially in the beginning. So let's take a look at Jack Riley, and we'll talk about it afterwards. This is the A Word.
Where's Jack Riley? I don't know. All I see are his little feet. Where'd he go? Where is he? Where is he? Oh, I found him. I found him. I found his little face. There's Jack Riley. So this is visual stimming. So there's basically no particular function for it. It's just automatic to him. Hey, let's go find something better to play. Do you want to play with Legos? Say open. Ben, yeah. Open. So we just redirect it so that it doesn't become just a habit later. Okay, let's do some talking. Say ba. Good job. Say ga. Good job. There you go, buddy. We're moving along programs quite quickly, more than we anticipated. And this is the ACODES program we started with him. Say ba. Say pa. Say say go. Good job. Say ya ya. Say ya ya. Try again. Say ya ya. That's close. Say ya ya. Say ya.
To get him to begin talking, he needed to start with the basics. Every step is broken down to make the end goal manageable. The first step is making simple sounds. The idea is that once he has the sounds, he will be able to mix them together to enunciate words. Words give power. They are used to label, acquire, inquire. The end goal is to have these words come together to create sentences, to create conversation. Say what he wants, what he thinks, what he feels.
Say ya. Say it louder, okay? Say ya. And when you get your Lego, say ya. Nope. Say ya. Yeah, there you go. That's close, honey. Say E. Good job. Say T. Good. Very good. There you go. So these are just a list of the sounds that he makes or the words that he's trying to say.
Can you say basketball? And even
Basketball.
his ball is better now. It used to be ga consistently. He says ba.
He said ba today, yeah.
Spaghetti. One version of it. Yes, you like spaghetti.
What's that? Say moon. Yeah, that's the moon. That's right. And his spontaneous language has increased just 1 week of therapy. Hey, Jack Riley. Come here. Come look at my book. Or you want to look at my guitar? You look at my guitar? It's right here. You want it. Look. Tar. Good job. Hip hop. Hip hop. Jam. What's up, buddy? What should we play now? See you soon. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Welcome back. That was the A Word, an incredible documentary that's being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And, you know, we've gone back to the beginning. There are still episodes that you can watch on their YouTube channel where they've gone ahead without us. But we've gone back to the beginning because I like to go back to basics from time to time. And we had gotten caught up with where they were. So I want to give them a little time to go ahead. But you can watch whichever episodes you want to watch. If you want to see when they start to talk about toilet training, if you want to see when they take on the food issues, you can search all those topics on their YouTube channel. A couple of different things that I want to talk about this week with this particular episode, and we'll do it in little snippets, but I want you to notice, and we're not seeing the full picture, right? Because they can only show a couple of seconds to demonstrate the different things they're talking about. But we see a child who is starting to learn already. And we don't see the ultimate in frustration of when they actually started, but you saw that moment when she's got the Legos there and she's giving him a piece of his Legos to play with each time it's called echoics, where he's echoing what she says. She says, say ba, and he says ba, and she gives him a piece of the Legos. And this is immediate reinforcement that she gave, we call it an SD, that she says, say ba, it's very clear. He says ba, or close to it, right? And she gives him a piece of Lego. Now that's the reinforcer, because he, at this moment in time, is reinforced by their Duplos. They're the bigger Legos. But he's reinforced by that. So he's hanging with her. He wants to participate because he sees, I say this and you give me a piece of Lego, and eventually I'm going to be able to go build something with all the Legos that I have. Great. Is that going to work for every child? No. You got to find what's reinforcing to the individual child. We know that in order for us to do any behavior, there has to be some sort of paycheck. So in this particular moment, what's working for the child is the Lego. And we're rewarding approximations. So when he says, she says, yeah, and she's working with him a little bit and trying to get him to say yeah, and he's having a tough time, but she's kind of trying to see how far can I push him. And so she says, say wa, and he says wa, and then she says, say ya, or whatever it is, ga, whatever it is, and he doesn't say it, and he's like, ready, you know, I just uttered something, now give me the Lego. And she doesn't give it to him because it's differential reinforcement. He's already done it before. She's going to kind of push him, moving the goal goalpost. No, you got to say it closer to what the actual sound is. You got to get it right or you don't get your paycheck. He doesn't understand that in the moment. You see that in the video, and she, you know, there's a look of confusion on his face, like, I did it, why don't I get my thing? And she says no, and she says the prompt again. She says, say ya ya, and he utters wah. And she says, nope, say ya ya, but you hear the no, that it's not like no or nope, you know, it's just nope. It's just a little tiny boop, nope, it's not happening. So he knows he's got to try again, and she gives him the prompt again. But then you see he tries like 4 different times and he doesn't get it. So he doesn't get the reinforcement, and you hear what happens in his voice. He goes, ah! And he starts to go. Physically, he's going off the chair. Mentally, he's going off the lesson. This isn't going my way. I'm not getting a paycheck. I'm not doing this anymore. And if he had the words, we all know what he would say. I don't know what you want me to do. Haven't we all had at least one moment in our lives where we felt that you ask somebody, what do you want me to do? And they say this, and you do it, and you don't get the response. And then they say, no, I want you to do this, and you do that, and you don't get the response. Until finally you go, I don't know what you want me to do. I have no idea what you want. Just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it, but I have no idea, right? And he's having that moment of frustration. That is going to come with almost all children at some point, because and it's going to happen again and again and again until they figure out what the key is. Oh, I do this, and then you give me the reinforcement. Okay, that's the thing I'm going to do. It's so important that when we're working with our kids that we're 100% clear, because if they're going to take the effort to figure out what is the clue to this puzzle here, you say this, I do this, I get the thing I want. We've got to make sure that we're consistent in the beginning. Later on, we're going to work on varying it. But in the beginning, when we're trying to get them to understand, I say this, you do this, I give you this, it's got to be crystal clear. And they are going to go off the chair. I love that they included this moment so that we can see that it's not, you know, so often when I first saw ABA therapy, I would see a child sitting in a chair and somebody would say something and the child would do something and yay! And I would think, whose kid is that? Because that's not my kid. My kid's not even going to sit in the chair. He'll do spaghetti legs. He'll be on the floor. And we do see that Jack Riley does that. And you see how the therapist deals with it. She goes over, she picks him up. Did you notice she didn't hug him when she picked him up? She hugs him all the time. But she picked him up and held him just a little away from her body and no reaction. She wasn't angry. She didn't make a face. She didn't lecture him, nag him. It was just, yeah, you know, say wah-wah, and she goes right back to it. This is one of the reasons why it's so helpful to have other people besides just the parent doing it, because it's hard. It's hard. And you know that for the therapist, somewhere in the back of their head, they're thinking, I only have to do this for a couple of hours, and then I get to leave for a while and come back. When you're the parent, that's not the case usually, right? You're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, is this my entire life? I need a break. I need a break. So really helpful to have other people on the team. Really helpful for various and sundry reasons, but so important that we understand what's happening in that moment. We're teaching the child, this happens, you get a paycheck. This happens, you get a paycheck. Make sure it's clear. Make sure that you don't muddy it up. Don't say other things. Don't do other things. Don't move other things around. Keep it that clear. I say this, you do this, you get a reward. Okay. All right, now I got a tickle. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, it is time for us to look at your answers to the question of the day, which was, what has your child mastered? What are you really proud of? What skill that they've mastered? So stick with us. We'll be back after these messages.
I was living and working in Ghana with one little boy with autism when people started showing up at my house looking for the lady who knew what autism was. So I built this organization specifically to provide sustainable training. So we provide training in the clinical services as well as the business practices to build local capacity to provide these services.
I have a program that's approved by the board, by the BCBA, to do training. Let's see what we can do to collaborate with universities in Kenya and to, within 3 to 5 years, give them our program and walk away to another program. What's unique about what UMass Boston wants to do is we don't want to set up an international presence and increase our market. We want to build capacity, and that fits with Molly's image.
So SkillCorps is a really awesome opportunity that that allows people who are in the field, who have expertise within this country and other parts of the world, to travel with us to our service sites for 2 to 4 weeks and provide just a little bit of training, but they're connected with us, an organization for whom our full-time job is to build relationships, build partnerships, and build capacity so that we can increase awareness around the country and the community, and we can ultimately increase access to services for these kids. You can always donate online on our website, globalautismproject.org. It's a great way to look at our sites, see what we're doing around the world, meet some of our partners. We work with phenomenally talented, awesome people, but one person and one small organization can only do so much. We're working to affect systemic change on a global level.
Welcome back to Autism Live. And it's that time of day when we're going to talk about motor skills. And usually when we talk about motor skills, there's 4 different areas of motor skills that we talk about. Gross motor, fine motor, oral motor, and visual motor. And for today, I want to focus a little bit on oral motor. You know, when we were watching the A Word last week, one of the things that they were talking about is that here you have this little boy who has some verbal communication, right? Some vocal communication even, and he has some real eating issues that are a problem. He only is eating things that are very mushed and smushed together, like applesauce and mushed together bananas. And one of the experts was saying this is a problem because as we teach this child language skills, he is not going to have the oral motor capability to be able to be understood because he's not doing enough chewing. So sometimes we have an issue one place and it becomes an issue someplace else. And we really want to be creative, right, when we're dealing with different issues. So I put together some different things to consider that are oral motor. If you have a child that has oral motor issues where they need to be doing facial aerobics and getting those muscles toned, and they don't have eating issues, these are some things that you might want to consider that are really helpful. And if your child does have eating issues, see if any of these categories are things that are textures that they do like so that we can morph exercises. Now, usually we will do exercises by having the child vocalize and say, you know, just what they were doing with Jack Riley a minute ago, say ga. And what you're working on with ga, of course, you're working on the jaw muscles, and you're working on tongue muscles to say ga, and a whole bunch of other things that go along with it, right? When you say ta, you're working on the tip of the tongue. But there are some kids that, first of all, can't make those sounds, or that there are issues that are so severe that it's hampered and they're not getting the reward for it. First of all, we have to reward approximations. But here are some things if you want to try to work on something in a different way. First of all, chewing anything. And try to be as healthy as possible. We have our healthy eating tip coming up in just a few minutes, so be mindful of that. But whether it's something like popcorn, there's a certain amount of chewing that has to happen with popcorn. There are fruit leathers that you can buy that are organic that have no sugar in them. No artificial colors, no nothing. That kind of thing to chew. Just make sure that if your child is having difficulties chewing, that you're not giving them something that A, they're going to choke on, so give it to them in small pieces. And especially with the fruit leathers, make sure that you're facilitating the brushing the teeth afterwards, because that's the kind of thing that can get stuck in teeth and really create a problem that you don't want to have. So anything where there's, you know, kind of chewing, go slowly so that your child works up to, and if you've been giving your child mashed bananas, mash it a little bit less each time so that there's a certain amount of chewing, but always, always go slowly and be monitoring to make sure that they're not going to choke choke on the thing that they're chewing. Okay, something that I love that people do all the time is taking something like pudding and putting it all, if pudding is something, and make sure you get one that's relatively healthy pudding, putting it all around their mouth, because then what's going to happen is they're going to stick their tongue out and go in a circle. It's one of the exercises that we want our children to do, but where's the paycheck in it, right? Well, if you put the pudding there, there's an automatic paycheck in there. So their favorite flavor of pudding, or you can smear Jell-O or something like that around their mouth, and their tongue comes out, and away they go. It could be, soft ice cream, that kind of thing. One of the other things that I really recommend, if you've seen on Minute to Win It, the cookie races, where they take and put a cookie on somebody's forehead, they're laying back, and they have to move their face around to get the cookie to come down into their mouth, and if the cookie drops to the floor, they have to put it back. Do those kinds of races with your kids. You have to demonstrate to them first. There are hilarious videos on YouTube that you can show them to see what it is. Don't even tell them that they're making oral motor things. Don't even let them know. But if you show that to kids and then have other kids demonstrate it, for most kids are going to want to participate. They want the cookie, and they like the competitive nature of it. So it can be very good, and they're using the muscles and toning them up as they go. Another thing that you can do with very small children, or children who are having a great deal of oral motor difficulty, and you're wanting to create some muscle things to go first, is sucking fresh fruit popsicles. You can buy, they even make them BPA-free popsicle molds now that you can get almost, but do get the BPA-free ones, and cut up fresh fruit so that it's really manageable and really ripe, so that when it does thaw, it's going to be really easy, but have them suck on the popsicles. They also make these wonderful mesh bags that you can put a piece of fruit in for babies who choke, or older children who have difficulties. You can put fruit that's gonna mash a little bit into these mesh bags. It looks like a big ring. So it's got a little bit of a ring to it, and then it's got a mesh bag that clips down. And you can put a peach or strawberries or raspberries or something like that that's really going to be sweet, that's going to be worth the paycheck, and give it to the child and have them suck it out. Over time, they'll get better and better at sucking it. If the child is teething, especially, you can put frozen fruit in there and have them suck it. That's going to create, if you ever sucked on something, it really, oral motor creates a lot of muscle happening stuff going on. It's good stuff. So all of these different things, and then be creative. What else can you do with food to make that the paycheck while they're chewing and moving the things around their mouth? My background is theater, and something that I do when I go into a classroom to help children to warm up is I tell them to chew pretend gum. Now that's an advanced skill, but it's something that we can do with older children. So if you've got a child whose diction isn't great and they're not wanting to do the diction exercises, you can make it as fun as possible. That's the key, is making it fun. But we can make oral motor things fun for the kids so that they're more likely to do the lessons. That's our oral motor tip for the day. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to take on our healthy eating tip, which kind of goes hand in hand. Stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provide you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community, where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. And right now, it is that time of the week when we talk about our healthy eating tip for the week. I know. I always say it's my least popular moment because while we all want our kids to eat healthy, it's a battle sometimes, right? And you just don't want to hear about it from time to time. I know I'm the same way, but we got to take it on. It's one of those things that we can't stick our head in the sand. One of the things that we hear a lot of is that anymore are the importance of ridding your child's diet of artificial colors and artificial flavors. And there's a whole host of research that's been done on this that suggests that it is better if we severely limit or eliminate artificial colors and flavors. And if you want to know why, I'm not going to tell you why here on the show with all the research that happens because it's one of those things that it scares you. So I'm not going to go through all that for you. I'm going to ask you to look at the research to see some of the different reasons why you're being asked to limit or eliminate artificial food colorings, and there are very specific ones. Usually the ones that if it has a color and it has a number after it, and even then there's a subset of numbers that are worse than other numbers. Do they affect all children in the same way? I think clearly we all know not. because we've all been to a birthday party and seen what happens after the children. You know how at Halloween they now make those black cakes and they have the purple and the orange and the red and all that frosting, and the kids are all walking around afterwards, and it's great picture time, right? Because their tongues are all these different colors. They have black tongues, and we all think it's absolutely hilarious. And then about 20 minutes later, there's kids having meltdowns, but not all of them. Some of them are perfectly fine. Other kids have the meltdown later. Some of them don't have a meltdown at all, but some of the kids have an immediate meltdown. You know, is it the sugar? Is it the food coloring? Is it both? Is it all the sensory stuff? I don't really know, but I do know that when I was a kid and we went through our day, that there were different things that happened during the day where we might get a treat, but the amount of artificial food coloring and the amount of artificial flavors that we got when I was a kid was vastly different than what it is for a child now. It is in so many different packaged foods. So if you're interested in seeing if your child does better without these things, and there are both immediate and long-term health considerations here, you may want to consider it. So here are some things to keep in mind that will make it easier to limit or get rid of them. One of them is to eat foods that are whole. So when you're buying things, you know, whether it's that you're going to make a cupcake or you're going to buy a cupcake, make sure that the ingredients, it's that old adage about if you can't pronounce the ingredients, then it's probably not the best thing for you. And whenever you buy things that are already packaged, when I was a kid, I'm sure that there were frozen waffles and there were frozen pancakes, but my mother, if we were going to have pancakes, she made the batter, she poured it out on the pancake griddle, and yeah, she didn't have to check her voicemail from 4 phones or check to see what somebody was saying on Facebook, or, you know what I mean? She had other concerns. But she was making that, and if she put blueberries in something, she put real blueberries in that she got from the store. When possible, buy things that are whole, even if you're going to buy frozen things. I know I give my son frozen waffles, but they are frozen waffles that I can read every single ingredient that is in them. And I know that you can find those as well. It's probably going to be more expensive, but in the long term, you may see that your child's health is improved. Okay. Also, whenever you're going to color things, get creative and color them with vegetable and fruits. They sell food coloring if you want anything from dyeing eggs to tinting frosting. They sell varieties that you can get that aren't artificial, that they literally come from fruits and vegetables. We did a cooking segment last fall that we'll probably show again this fall for Halloween, and we needed some purple sprinkles, and we went to the store, and lo and behold, we got some purple sprinkles that were totally all natural coloring. So it doesn't have to be those petroleum-based colors that are so rampant in all of our, and that's what they are, you guys, they're petroleum-based. Okay, and then again, read every single food package, especially for candy. It is such a nightmare how much, but there are so many artificial food colorings in so many different things now. It's absolutely shocking. Whatever you're about to put into your child's mouth, read the ingredients and see what are the artificial flavors, what are the artificial colors, and use caution. If it's between 2 things and one of them has artificial food coloring, I would suggest you go for the other. It's a choice, but I think that you'll see that it's a good choice. And if you need to, do the research on it. There's lots of studies out there, and you know that in a lot of countries around the world, they have banned some of these colors. That is not the case here in the United States, but we have the choice as consumers to say, you know what, I don't know about this, and so I'm going to choose not to for my child's health. Keeping our kids healthy, priority number 1, right? Do what you can with artificial food colors and flavors. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back in just a couple of minutes, I think with a cognition tip, so stick with us.
I am Karen Driscoll. I'm a Marine Corps wife and mother of 3. My oldest son has autism. The strains on our typical military families are extraordinary. You add on the challenges of autism, access to care issues, and at times having to pay for effective treatments, and these families are pushed to the brink. We've lived in 5 different homes. That means 5 different medical communities, 5 different school districts, and 5 different state-run programs. The biggest challenge I face as a mother is going from bottom of wait list to bottom of wait list, never getting access to the effective services our children require. I feel like I'm constantly fighting for these services. We are working on a bill in Congress called the Caring for Military Kids with Autism Act that works to true up these policy deficits. You ask any service member overseas today, what can we do for you? They will always answer, please take care of my family at home.
Visit autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back to Autism Live, and now it's time for the cognition tip of the week. One of the things that we talked about a lot last week was perspective taking. It started when we had Angela Persicki, who's a board-certified behavior analyst, and she was talking about some of the different cognition things that we work on and executive function things that we work on, and perspective taking came up, and you guys had a lot of questions for her. We then had Dr. Jonathan Tarbox come in on Friday and talk extensively about perspective taking. So if you missed either of those interviews, those are both available for you probably by the end of today on YouTube and Blip, and I think it's already there on iTunes in their entirety. But I wanted to go back a little bit because one of the things that both Angela Persicki and Dr. Tarbox talked about was that when we teach perspective taking, one of the paths that we take is that first we teach the senses personally, and then later on we teach sensory perspective taking. So I wanted to go back a little bit in the cognition curriculum and talk about how do we teach the senses and some things to keep in mind if you're going to teach your child the senses. And first of all, first and foremost, always make it fun. That's gotta be our motto, right? Make it fun, make it fun, make it fun. And make it, because if it's fun, it's reinforcing, right? We all like to have fun. My child always says to me, Mom, let's have some fun, right? That's what he wants to have more than anything else. His idea of fun and my idea of fun, of course, are 2 entirely different things, but for a lot of things. Some things are the same. But when we're choosing what to work on, and keep in mind that there's lots of different senses, and you can pick which one you want to start with first, whether you want to start with smell or sight or with hearing or with touch, any of those, or any of the 5 senses. But make sure that you choose things that are vivid, and then you can fade to things that are more subtle. So let's say, for instance, that we are going to be teaching smells, first of all, because smells is something that we can manipulate in the beginning in a very specific way. Remember, we're always trying to create a bubble. And one of the things that I have here is be mindful of isolating individual lessons. So if I'm going to teach about smell, then I'm going to kind of reduce everything else that's going on. I might make sure that all the windows and doors are closed so that I don't have any other smells. If the garbage truck pulls up, I don't want to be smelling the garbage truck when I'm teaching smells yet. I might do that later on. And I don't want a lot of noises happening, and I don't want a lot of visual stimulation. I'm going to make everything else in the room a little bit more neutral, as much as I can. I'm not going to work overtime on that, right? But one of the things that we did when we taught our son smells, and of course I had therapists helping me with this, but it was fascinating. They just asked me to get some supplies, and what we got were some Dixie cups and some paper towels and some rubber bands. Might be stuff that you have just laying around. It wasn't stuff that I had laying around, so I had to go buy some of that stuff. But we had the Dixie cups, the little tiny drinking cups, right? Some paper towels. You could use coffee filters if you wanted to, and having rubber bands just makes it a little bit easier. And we were asked to isolate like 6 very pungent smells that my son would be familiar with. Now, you could say to yourself, well, I'm going to take coffee. Coffee grounds are very pungent, they're very vivid, but we're not coffee drinkers in my house. My husband will have like a cup of coffee once every 6 years, and I can't have caffeine at all. So we don't you know, if my mother comes to visit, we make coffee, but it's a very, you know, it doesn't happen very often. So the smell of coffee, not going to be something that my child can identify. That's going to be something we work on later on to say, oh, this is the smell of coffee. But we want to pick some things that our child will already know the smell of. And that's going to be individual to your child. Now, for my child loves lemons. He's all about lemons. One of his favorite treats, I know it's weird, but is to have a lemon. He likes to eat them in lots of different ways, but he loves a lemon. So we cut up lemon and made it, you know, really so that it was pungent, and squeezed the skin a little bit, the zest, so that it was really pungent lemon, and put that in a Dixie cup. And you want to find at least 4 or 5 or 6 things like that that have a very distinct smell, and a smell that your child would recognize. And then so you put it in the cups and you cover it with the paper towel and you put the rubber band on so that you can pass the cups around. You don't have to blindfold anybody. Now you could do it where you blindfold somebody, but that gets into a whole other sensory issue for the kids, right? Where sometimes then they're all about the blindfold. You know, if it's okay for your child, but we couldn't have done that with ours. So we're passing the cups around and we played a game with everybody, because you got to make it fun to see who can identify what the smell is. And because my husband is an actor, everything is over the top, right? Well, you want to have fun with something, you invite my husband, because he's a party in pants, right? So he, you know, we would smell something, he'd go, woo! You know, do a big reaction, which would just have my son giggling and thinking it was so much fun. And then he wanted to smell it. But so we would all smell and get to guess what we thought it was. And if somebody guessed correctly, they won. And we would do this time and time again to identify what smells are. And then the therapist would be saying, you know, would hand the cup and say, what do you smell? And my son would smell it, and he would say lemons. And the therapist would say, yes, it smells like lemons. So we're teaching them that this is your scent, and these are the, you know, the smell. It's how you smell things. It's the sense of scent is what I'm trying to say ineloquently, but also teaching them the language that surrounds it, and that you have a reaction to smell. Then later on it was things that you touch, and we would get lots of different things. You know what's great for that? If you have a child who's not going to say, oh, this is too baby, they have a lot of those baby books that you can go to Goodwill or someplace, Salvation Army, and get a couple of baby books that they have those pages where you have something that's rough and something that's smooth. We had a great dinosaur book where all of the different, there was a little boy who was going through, and he would say, have you seen my dinosaur? And then he'd go on the next page and he would say, this is not my dinosaur. Its spines are too rough. And then you would feel the spines of them. So it gives you great stimuli that they can touch for the senses, and gives them the words. This is smooth. This is rough. This is bumpy. You know, this, all the different textures of things. This is silky. Great examples of those in very young books for children. But however you do it, these are the criteria that you want to follow. Make it fun, choose things that are vivid, and eventually you can get to things that are a little bit more subtle, and be mindful that you isolate them so that you're not teaching that something is silky the same time that something loud is happening outdoors. We're trying to isolate that sense. And when we do teach our children the senses, it really lays the groundwork so that we can get to perspective taking. It's an amazing thing, you guys. Have fun with it. Okay, it's time for us to take a break. When we come back, I think we're going to show the TED Talk now. Is that what we're doing, Emily? Okay, from time to time, we share with you TED Talks. These are these amazing opportunities that people from all over the world fly to present a topic, an idea for a few minutes to a group of very intelligent people. And this particular one that we're about to see is about being a savant. Is that right, Emily? I'm correct for once in my life. So let's take a look, and we'll talk about it when we come back.
I'm a savant, or more precisely, a high-functioning autistic savant. It's a rare condition, and rarer still when accompanied, as in my case, by self-awareness and a mastery of language. Very often when I meet someone and they learn this about me, there's a certain kind of awkwardness. I can see it in their eyes. They want to ask me something. And in the end, quite often, the urge is stronger than they are, and they blurt it out. If I give you my date of birth, can you tell me what day of the week I was born on? Or they mention cube roots, or ask me to recite a long number or a long text. I hope you'll forgive me if I don't perform a kind of one-man savant show for you today. I'm going to talk instead about something far more interesting than dates of birth or cube roots, a little deeper and a lot closer to my mind and work. I want to talk to you briefly about perception. When he was writing the plays and the short stories that would make his name, Anton Chekhov kept a notebook in which he noted down his observations of the world around him, little details that other people seem to miss. Every time I read Chekhov and his unique vision of human life, I'm reminded of why I, too, became a writer. In my books, I explore the nature of perception and how different kinds of perceiving create different kinds of knowing and understanding. Here are 3 questions drawn from my work. Rather than try to figure them out, I'm going to ask you to consider for a moment the intuitions and the gut instincts that are going through your head and your heart as you look at them. For example, the calculation. Can you feel where on a number line the solution is likely to fall? Or look at the foreign word and the sounds. Can you get a sense of the range of meanings that it's pointing you towards? And in terms of the line of poetry, why does the poet use the word hare rather than rabbit? I'm asking you to do this because I believe that our personal perceptions, you see, are at the heart of how we acquire knowledge. Aesthetic judgments, rather than abstract reasoning, guide and shape the process by which we all come to know what we know. I'm an extreme example of this. My worlds of words and numbers blare with color, emotion, and personality. As Juan said, it's a condition that scientists call synesthesia, an unusual crosstalk between the senses. Here are the numbers 1 to 12, as I see them. Every number with its own shape and character. 1 is a flash of bright light. 6 is a tiny and very sad black hole. The sketches are in black and white here, but in my mind, they have colors. 3 is green, 4 is blue, 5 is yellow. I paint as well, and here is one of my paintings. It's a multiplication of 2 prime numbers, 3-dimensional shapes, and the space they create in the middle creates a new shape, the answer to the sum. What about bigger numbers? Well, you can't get much bigger than pi, the mathematical constant. It's an infinite number, literally goes on forever. In this painting that I made of the first 20 decimals of pi, I take the colors and the emotions and the textures and I pull them all together into a kind of rolling numerical landscape. But it's not only numbers that I see in colors. Words too, for me, have colors and emotions and textures. And this is an opening phrase from the novel Lolita. And Nabokov was himself synesthetic. And you can see here how my perception of the sound L helps the alliteration to jump right out. Another example, a little bit more mathematical, and I wonder if some of you will notice the construction of the sentence from The Great Gatsby. There is a procession of syllables. Wheat, 1. Prairies, 2. Lost Swede towns, 3. 1, 2, 3. And this effect is very pleasant on the mind, and it helps the sentence to feel right. Let's go back to the questions I posed you a moment ago. 64 multiplied by 75. If some of you play chess, you'll know that 64 is a square number. And that's why chessboards 8 by 8 have 64 squares. So that gives us a form that we can picture, that we can perceive. What about 75? Well, if we think of 100 as being like a square, 75 would look like this. So what we need to do now is put those two pictures together in our mind. Something like this. 64 becomes 6400. And in the right-hand corner, you don't have to calculate anything. 4 across, 4 up and down, it's 16. So what the sum is actually asking you to do is 16, 16, 16. That's a lot easier than the way that the school taught you to do maths, I'm sure. It's 16, 16, 16, 48, 4800. 4,800, the answer to the sum. Easier when you know how. The second question was an Icelandic word. I'm assuming there are not many people here who speak Icelandic. So let me narrow the choices down to 2. Hnugin. Is it a happy word or a sad word? What do you say? Happy. Okay. Some people say it's happy. Most people, a majority of people, say sad. And it actually means sad. Why do, statistically, a majority of people say that a word is sad in this case, heavy in other cases? In my theory, language evolves in such a way that sounds match, correspond with the subjective, with the personal, intuitive experience of the listener. Let's have a look at the third question. It's a line from a poem by John Keats. Words, like numbers, express fundamental relationships between objects and events and forces that constitute our world. It stands to reason that we, existing in this world, should, in the course of our lives, absorb intuitively those relationships. And poets, like other artists, play with those intuitive understandings. In the case of hair, it's an ambiguous sound in English. It can also mean the fibers that grow from our head. And if we think of that, let me put the picture up. The fibers represent vulnerability. They yield to the slightest movement or motion or emotion. So what you have is an atmosphere of vulnerability and tension. The hair itself, the animal, not a cat, not a dog, a hare. Why a hare? Because think of the picture, not the word, the picture. The overlong ears, the overlarge feet, helps us to picture, to feel intuitively what it means to limp and to tremble. So in these few minutes, I hope I've been able to share a little bit of my vision of things and to show you that words can have colors and emotions, numbers, shapes and personalities. The world is richer, vaster than it too often seems to be. I hope that I've given you the desire to learn to see the world with new eyes. Thank you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. What a perfect day for us to show that when we've been talking about senses and how important perspective taking is and how important perspective is. Absolutely fascinating. I don't know about you, but I don't get the math issue. I got the chessboard. I got the understanding that 75 is 3/4 of 100, but then how we got to 6,400 and how we got to the rest of those numbers, whoo, right over my head. Oh man, lost me in the dust there. But I love being, I know something that you guys write in a lot and that I also say a lot. I would give anything to be able to see how my son perceives the world. And I shared that on Mother's Day, talk about the gift. You know, that's the thing that I always say, oh, if I could have one thing, I would like to be able to see how my son sees the world. And I love that this gentleman has a way of sharing with us that we can see his unique perspective. And I finally got a glimmer of, it's not the first time that I've gotten a glimmer of how my son thinks on Mother's Day. And I know I've shared the story before, but my husband was looking at his phone and showed us a picture of a man holding a whole big bundle of cats, baby kittens. And it said, florist was closed, hope you like kittens. And it looked like a bouquet of kittens. And he showed it to my son and I, and just the expression on the cats' faces and on the gentlemen's faces, it was just really funny. We were all laughing about it. And a little bit later in the conversation, after they'd given me gifts, and I said, oh, this is so much better than getting 42 cats. And my son, without missing a beat, said, it was 12 cats. And I said, what are you talking about? I don't know how many cats it was. I was exaggerating. I love to exaggerate. And he goes, but no, it was 12 cats. And 8 years old at the time, and it was just that pause, and I said to my husband, give me your phone, because I needed to go and count the cats to see if there were really 12 cats. I knew that it was going to be 12 cats, and it made a certain amount of sense, and I thought, does he know that it's 12 cats because he understands that a bouquet of flowers comes in a dozen? And I was asking him that as I was looking up the picture, and I was saying to him, when you give somebody a bunch of flowers, how many do you give? And no idea. No idea whatsoever. He's, I don't know, 30? You know, no idea. Didn't understand the whole concept of giving a dozen roses. Just wasn't part of his. So I'm looking up the picture, and I saw the picture, and sure enough, it was 12 cats. And I said to him, how did you know it was 12 cats? And he said, well, you showed me the picture. And I said, yeah, but you only got to look at the picture for a couple of seconds. You didn't have time to count the cats. How did you know? And he said, oh, but there was a picture in my mind of the picture. And I said, so you could go back afterwards? And I'm thinking, photographic memory. I said, so you could go back afterwards and look at the picture. And I was getting so excited, and he was getting excited because I'm always asking him, what do you see in your head? And he has a hard time being able to express to me what it is that he sees. And so he got all excited. He said, well, Mom, not only can I see the picture, but I can move the cats around. And he said, so I moved them into a line where it was easier for me to count them. To be able to know that that's how his brain works, that he takes a picture of it and then he can manipulate the picture. It was just an amazing thing, because I don't know about you, I can't do that. Like, you know, there are some times that I can take a picture of words that I have a really good recall, but it's a fuzzy picture. It's like I need a pair of glasses. And I know that a lot of people can't even do that, but to be able to hear that not only could he take the picture, but that he can manipulate and move things around. I've always suspected that because a lot of times he'll be able to, if you show him a picture of something like a structure, he can build the backside of it without seeing it. It's amazing because he can manipulate it. So anytime we have an opportunity to see the way somebody else thinks, whether they're on the spectrum or not, I think it's an amazing, amazing gift to be able to see that. So to be able to see that that's how this young man sees words and numbers, oh my goodness, it is not how I see them. And I don't know if it's how you see them, but absolutely fascinating. So again, that's a TED Talk, and you're able to look at all of these TED Talks. Emily, do we know what the name of that one is if somebody wants to search it out other than on our program? We'll find them. His name is Daniel Tammet, and so you can search Tammet. So you can search that on TED Talks. They're absolutely fascinating, aren't they? All right, we're going to take a break and come back to close out the show. If you have questions or comments, now's a great time to be writing in. Stick with us.
While there are some children that have feeding problems and no other issues, there are also children that have medical problems that are comorbid with their feeding issue. So they may have esophageal reflux, they may have food allergies, they may have a variety of different things that impact feeding. And for that, it's not only the behavior analyst that is required to help the child, but other members of the medical community as well. One of the things you would want to look at is the range of the child's diet. And is that diet, does it possibly impact their health? A number of the kids that we see do have anemia from not taking in enough iron. A number of the kids that we see are deficient in various micronutrients. So it is does the diet impact their health? And two, is there social ramifications from their feeding problem? In some cases, families can't go out to eat. They can't go to different places because their child's either diet is so limited or their feeding behavior is so limited that affects the family and it affects the child. If you look at the literature, behavioral interventions have been widely used to treat childhood feeding problems, and especially in kids with autism spectrum disorders. At our facility and a number of other places as well, we regularly succeed at getting kids with feeding problems to eat a wider variety of foods.
If there's somebody who has a child and they see that they've got an issue and they want to get some help, how can they contact your program?
We have our email address is feedingprogram@hmc.psu.edu. And certainly we're glad to talk to anyone, but I don't want them to think that we're the only ones out there. There's a lot of feeding programs, and there's a lot of behavior analysts that are very good at this. And if they're working with a behavior analyst already, a lot of the things that they're probably in the child's current program could be adapted to work on feeding. We just apply behavior analysis to feeding. We don't have a separate skill set. We just apply it to this particular area.
Welcome back to Autism Live. That was Keith Williams, who's written many books about feeding issues with children on the autism spectrum that you can definitely check out. Amazing gentleman. I never got around to the question of the day. We had some issues on some of the sites where it didn't get posted, but I do want to, one of the places that it did get posted, somebody wrote in and said, first of all, the question was, what's the most amazing skill that your child has developed? And somebody wrote in and said, this summer my 10-year-old son learned how to ride a two-wheeler bike and how to swim. I couldn't be more proud of his accomplishments. That's absolutely amazing. You know, it was on our list of things to do this summer to get the two-wheeler bike going, and we've gotten a couple of seconds. That we're still working on it, but you know, we're making progress. So I'm right there with you. There's so many things involved. You got to be steering and balance and watching the horizon and having your legs move. Oh my goodness. It's a big skill set. So congratulations to you. I think that's wonderful. And swimming too. How wonderful and fabulous is that? Really want to thank you for writing in and sharing that with all of us to remind us that, and it reminds me because today today is about maintaining progress, and we haven't been bike riding for at least a couple of weeks, and we had some progress, and now I got to make sure we have more progress. Also, a couple of other things that I wanted to follow up on. The person that was writing to us earlier over the weekend about what to do about the insurance, and I was saying that there is some gap insurance that's available, I'm told, and that I would look for the site for you, and my computer completely froze up, but I think I've got it here. I might be, no, it completely, yeah, there it is. Okay, so here they go. They put out a consumer alert for California residents, and they gave you a couple of different addresses that you could go to. One of them is www.insurance.ca.gov. Now, once you get there, you're going to need to search autism because there's going to be a lot of different topics. But right now, they have a consumer alert out about insurance for autism. So that might be helpful. But again, it's www.insurance.ca.gov. Also, another person's website that they encourage you if you have autism insurance issues in the state of California, that, and if you want to read the entire bill for some reason, that you can go to Senator Bill Steinberg's site, and it's Bill 946. And I'm trying to read... okay, www.leginfo.ca.gov, that you can go there and you can find more information there. Also want to let you know that tomorrow on the show, we just got confirmation, we're going to have Emily Island on the show during the 11 o'clock hour during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And some of the questions that you guys have asked, she is an autism advocate of the first order, very well known, travels the world and speaks. And Emily will be with us tomorrow, and we will pose these questions to her as well, and hope that you guys will write in over the next 24 hours with questions that you have about what your legal rights are and things that you might want to consider doing. Again, that's Emily Island during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy tomorrow. In fact, now's a great time for us to talk about some of the different things that will be happening tomorrow. We've gone to this new format. It's 2 hours instead of 3 hours. But tomorrow morning at 10:20, we're going to be joined by Evelyn Gould. She's a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst. She'll be here answering your questions and talking about topics that have to do with autism and being the most efficient, most effective parent that you can be. She gives great advice about how we can center ourselves and be in a place where emotionally we can be able to look at and deal with the kinds of things that we have to look at and look out for, right? That way, a little bit of a slip of the tongue, but not that much, because sometimes it feels like a shoe is coming in from someplace you can't see, right? That's what having a child with autism feels like sometimes. So she talks to us about not only how we can be more effective working with our children and strategies to teach them, but also to be effective with ourselves, to cut ourselves a little bit of a slack and say, hey, we've got something real going on here that's difficult, and deal with it instead of pretend that it isn't there or fall completely apart, which I have done. So Evelyn will be in tomorrow, and she'll be taking your questions. If you have suggestions of things that you would like for Evelyn to talk about specifically, you can always write that into us, and we'll give you some of those addresses here in just a second. So that's Evelyn Gould tomorrow at 10:20. We'll do the jargon of the day and all of that to start out, and then we'll have Evelyn at 10:20. Then at 11 o'clock, as I mentioned, it's Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. My co-host for that hour, Nancy Allspaw-Jackson, she's the executive director of Autism Care and Treatment Today, a wonderful not-for-profit charity that helps families with what they need. Nancy comes in that 1 hour a week to co-host with me, and we will have Emily Island, autism advocate, with us. But we'll also be sharing some of the different news stories, things that are in the news, and some of the footage that is from last week's 6th Annual Golf Charity Classic benefiting Autism Care and Treatment Today's military initiative for families who are in the military and have a child on the autism spectrum. The event was hosted by the fabulous and debonair and charming Joe Mantegna. And there were a lot of stars that were there, and there were 2 military dads who were there that got to golf with Joe Mantegna, both of them from the Navy. And we had an opportunity to talk to them, and I'm sure we'll find some time tomorrow to show you that footage because, oh, what a wonderful thing to be able to talk to these dads. These are dads that are fighting a couple of different wars, right? One of them had just come back from active duty on a fast attack sub, and while he was gone, his child was, of course, the mom was trying to find treatment for ABA, and he speaks very eloquently about what it's like to be a parent halfway around the world, hoping to help your child. So that's tomorrow during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Just to give you a preview of in the coming days, on Thursday, we're going to be joined by Angela Persicki again. She is a board-certified behavior analyst and is quite knowledgeable about research having to do with autism. She'll be with us on Thursday at 11 o'clock. And on Friday, of course, we are joined on a regular basis by Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. So we'll look forward to that. If there's specific things that you guys want to know about, you can write it at any point. And if we can't squeeze it in this week, we'll make sure that we squeeze it in the week after. So keep writing to us and telling the kinds of things that you need and are interested in hearing more about. I want to remind you that there are lots of different ways to get in touch with us. If you're watching us on autism-live.com, you can type, if it says Shannon is answering right now, you can type in your suggestions right now in that box. If it says rebroadcast, or if you're watching in any of the other ways you can watch us, you can email us. So Emily's going to start to show you some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us. Remember, email, day or night. We will cover your question on the next available live show. We will pose it of the experts that are here. You got a great opportunity, a bunch of different experts who are going to be here in the next couple of days that you can pose questions to. You can also call us. We have a phone line. We're thrilled to talk to you, whether it's on the air or off the air or leaving us a message. We're thrilled to know what you want to know, what will help and serve you as you're trying to help your child or student make progress. You can Skype. Those of you who are watching us around the world, we know that we're in over 104 countries now around the world. We love your input. It's always an education for me to find out what's happening with autism around the world. Ask your questions. You never know who else you'll be helping, and you can do that via Skype. You can also participate with us on Facebook. And we appreciate when you're on Facebook to give us a like. We're the new kids on the block. So give us a like if you will, comment, share, whatever flips your switch. Also participate with us on Twitter. We really enjoy your interaction on Twitter. I know that for some of you that's the preferred way. I'm learning it as fast as I can. It's a whole new medium for me. It's fascinating. Showing my age here. In any case, there are lots of different ways in which you can watch us. We talked about several things that have happened on previous shows this week. Anytime you want to look up a previous show, you can do so in lots of different ways. One of them is blip.tv. You can pause it, you can rewind, you can fast forward, look for a specific day, look for a specific interview, look for a specific topic. You can also do that on our YouTube channel. And what I love about YouTube is that once you've seen it, if you like it, you can share it. Share it on your Facebook, email it to a friend and say, hey, this is exactly what we were talking about the other day that I wished I'd known when this happened, la, la, la. So you can do that on our YouTube channel, and you can also download us for free on iTunes. This is another way, another service that you can download whole episodes, take them with you on vacation, whatever you like. And we are available on Ustream as well. You just need to search for Autism Live. So those are all the different ways that you can participate. We hope that you will. I always like to remind you that when you're starting out on this, the first thing you have to do is help your family. I know sometimes you feel guilty because you feel like, but there's a whole lot of people going through this. There's plenty of time once you help your family and your child, when you will have opportunities, and we'll share them with you here, ways in which you can help everybody. But even asking the question helps. So I hope you will. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time live. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.